let's hear it for your Sydney Swans. Cheers, cheer the red and the white, honour the name by day and by night.
Welcome back to A Bevy of Bloods, a fan podcast of the Sydney Swans Football Club.
So to all you loyal Swans out there, you just can't get enough of the red and the white.
Fluff up your tail feathers and settle in for a potentially biased yarn about all things to do with our beloved Bloods.
While our loyal Swans are marching onwards to victory.
G'day there, Cygnus and Swanlings. Welcome back to A Bevy of Bloods. You're joined as always by the boys from Sydney. I'm Chris and this is Swans superfan Sam.
That's right, you lucky loyal Swans fans. In this review episode, we're going to be chatting about the 3.5 quarter masterpiece on Friday night. And remember, if you like what you hear, please give us a follow. All right, let's kick things off with a quick game recap.
Right, last Friday night in front of 44,000 fans at the SCG, our Sydney Swans defeated the Carlton Blues by 52 points with a final score of 17-15, 117 to 9-11-65. All right, let's get stuck right into this amazing game. There, Sammy boy, how did you feel? Marngrook, great atmosphere, big crowd, Friday night, couldn't be better.
It really couldn't have after about the first 15 minutes. It was pretty worrying at the start. The Blues kicking 5 of the first 6. But from there on, we played an amazing game. I reckon best game we've played all season.
Yep, I don't disagree, mate. The atmosphere was wild. We all sit next to each other, and how many times did we say, "Is this the first time?" Like there was just multiple chants going off all around the ground. Right? It was crazy.
Whoever sits in the O'Reilly stand, thank you so much for Friday night. It was great to hear some chants coming from around the O'Reilly stand. I loved it. It's the first time in a number of years, I reckon, that it's been that consistent.
It does feel like we're the ones that kick it off most times, but yeah, I agree with you. It was coming from left, right, and center. It was everywhere. The crowd was wild. Mate, one thing that I did say, I kept saying it on the night. No doubt you probably got sick of me saying it, but I love the didge after the game, after the goals. I think it's the best thing. And every year I think to myself, why can't we just have that? Like, why can that just, I know people want to make it a special round, but why don't we just incorporate it as part of the game going forward? I posted it onto Facebook and asked the question. It's a bit, I'd say 50-50 with people saying, no, it's a special event. Some people saying, no, like, I don't like it. But a decent majority, a slight majority, I'd say, saying that, yes, that sounds good. Your take on it, what do you think?
I agree with you about 21 out of 22 times or 22 out of 23 times. However, if Errol kicks a goal, Errol has to come on. Outside that, I think it's got to be the didgeridoo. I'm with you, mate.
Look, unfortunately, I think that's the sole reason why we'll never be able to do it. If we can't play Errol's song, which was no way we're going to stop the didge to play Errol's song. So I think it's one or the other. We play songs or we play the didge or we do nothing. And yeah, I mean, Errol's song, everyone loves it. So you're not going to take that away from Swans fans.
Well, we can negotiate. We
can. One of the other things we did on Facebook, just to start off this week as well, is we asked the fans out there. We posted a picture of a player with a minor adjustment to their face, and we suggested that Noddy and I, for every correct guess of that player, Noddy and I would drink 1 beer. Now, there ended up being about 50 people picking that player. So needless to say, I'm still alive. So we didn't drink that many beers between us or a single hit. But, I'm just glad that there's fans out there that want to see us dead. So in more ways than one. So it is what it is. Mate, all right, let's get stuck into the game. At the beginning, as you said there, it looked like the Blues really were kicking off. It was concerning, but then when we started like really getting the ball down to the contest, going contest to contest to start dragging the game back into our terms, you could just see the momentum basically stop and then start switching our side and then just never let loose. It was all ours all the way through. Pressure was the key, mate. You kept yelling at me. The pressure was fantastic. Talk to me. How did you see it?
Well, I think they came out, they wanted it more at the start. Their ball movement was way better. It was way more direct. We were taking way too long, to move the ball. I think they were probably winning contests early on. Don't know the stats for it, but I think we started to equalise around the contest, and through there we just stifled the ball movement. And I think we did that through pressure. And 12 tackles to Rowie in the first half is like
Wow.
just signifies that.
Yeah.
I think that our pressure was what kept us in that game, and in the first quarter, and what helped us excel to lead for the rest of the game. They were winning in all key statistics at halftime, except for inside 50s and tackles. So our pressure was what helped us.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like you said, Rowie with 12 tackles at halftime ended up at 16. That's God effort right there. And the whole mids were incredible, and we'll talk about those two in just a moment. It felt like Grundy also was a huge part of the game. His work in the clearances, his work on the hitouts, and his general tackle pressure everywhere, I thought was fantastic. How did you see him?
He's just another fantastic game at the SCG from Brodie Grundy.
Yep.
He plays really well at the SCG. I think the small ground suits him. But yeah, look, I mean, just Pitnet's been a very good ruckman, especially like I saw an article that I think he's second in AFL ranking points this year. And, after that first 15 minutes, I think, Grundy took control just like our midfield did.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Look, one thing we were a little bit concerned when we were talking about the game last week, because we thought we might be a bit undersized in the back line with Curnow and Mackay. But as it turns out, Curnow did kick the 2, Mackay with the 1, and that absolutely horrendous miss from right in front. That was just, I don't know. I think
What's the turning point?
that was a certain turning point, right? I was just about to say that. Like, I kind of feel that moment, then it just went entirely our way. Their momentum, they're up and about, just kind of eased up, and we started taking over from there. So another superb job by the backline.
Yeah, look, and I'll be the first person to put my hand up and say, from that 15-minute mark onwards, Aaron Francis had a good game. Credit due to him. He played well. He did have a few mistakes in the first 15, but from there on, I think team defense was great, but also I think it does come from that pressure up the ground too. I think it really does. The mids are the ones that we've got to rave about this week.
No, mate, I agree with you there. Look, despite, as we spoke about, like the pressure was high, right? Despite getting more disposals, more handballs, we still ended up winning the tackle count. And I'm pretty sure, let me just kind of quickly see, it was like we averaged 64 tackles per game, and this game we had 77. So a humongous effort from everyone, led by, of course, the tackle machine himself, Rowie. Mate, it was a perfect game. Like you said, best game we've had all year. Would you see that we said it a couple of times during the game, but Carlton were making some really horrendous mistakes, right? Like totally like bad kicks, errant handballs, couldn't take a mark when they should have. They were just absolutely rattled by the pressure.
Yeah, well, I think that plus 22 would actually have come from the first half. And I think that pressure we put on there, it hung around at least mentally, in the back of Carlton's head when they were going for marks and dropping marks. I guess the handballs that were a bit off, the kicks were a bit off. I think it came from that first half pressure. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if we were 22 tackles up at halftime. I think that's the first, I guess, or the half of the first quarter and the second quarter, our pressure was just off the scale.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was led, as you said earlier, by the 3 guys in the middle. We've spoken about Rowie a fair bit. I'll shoot it over to you. Chad's number 1 fan, mate. He was just a superhero out there, man. Let's get stuck into it. Chad, your boy was killing it from the beginning all the way to the end. Won the best on ground by miles. No surprise we were going to give him 3 points this week. Talked about your chatty boy.
Well, look, I mean, he had 28 touches and 14 score involvements, so that says it all.
Yeah.
He had 5 scoring shots. I think he kicked 2 behinds from set shots, and he was just at his best. You know, he was breaking tackles, taking the game on top of those statistics. So you know, I'm starting to see why they're playing him out of the goal square because he just has that attacking impact. Rather than take him off the ground, put him up forward, rest him forward, and hopefully he can keep kicking goals.
How fun was it watching him like take bounces and look behind to see his opponent like barely able to keep up? He
It's
looks so fit.
why he's my favorite player. You know, I never thought there'd be another one after Kizza, but there is, and it's the Chad.
There's the Chad. Heaney also was phenomenal. Just another one of his just in crazy weeks, doing it with the defense, doing it in the middle, doing it in contests, doing out, taking marks, getting a part of the defense. Just awesome. Like I'm just trying to think. I haven't seen this consistent of a season by any player ever. I'm trying to remember, really. Did you remember any, Swans player, do you remember any Swans player being this consistent from the beginning?
I'd argue Kieran Jack was consistent his whole career and never got any recognition. No, look, I mean, 2011 Goodsey was awesome. You could argue the back half, or maybe from like round 8 onwards of Errol's season last year, was consistent from the start, like to be this dominant. In my time, as a diehard, it's hard to think of a player that has been this dominant in all areas, you know, and he had 50% of score involvements from his touches as well. The fact that our two not main mids necessarily, but our 2 main attacking mids, even though Heaney's doing it all around the ground, both kicked 3 and had 50% of disposals as score involvements is just out of this world.
Yeah, you can't hold that back. Like we said it last week as well. If Georgie Hewitt decided to go over to, say, Heaney, you get Warner out. If he goes over to Warner, you get Heaney out. Like that 1-2 punch between them, and then Rowie just doing what Rowie does. It's just continually to show itself as just being such a good model. And with the news about Parker, spoiler alert, we'll talk about that a bit later in the podcast. Yeah, just it's just good to know that we've got our 3 guys that's kind of solidified for a little while longer. Anyway, the other one that I wanted to bring on was Grundy. I mentioned it earlier. As we said, he's just killing it. He is an absolute soldier. Like him in that ruck, he's amazing. Hit out wins 48%, comparing that to 29% for Pittonet. He was just doing everything. And he's been like that. He's been such a consistent player this whole season as well. Grundy is continually up there in the conversation every single week. But he's also not having to be like in the limelight that he arguably was at Collingwood, at the D's, you know, especially last year when they were literally talking about him every single week. He doesn't get a mention in any bit of media. He just gets a lot of love from Swans fans. And I think that's really what he likes. What do you think?
Yeah, as I said before, like I think, you know, he's just a workhorse. He just gets the job done, whether that's hit outs or whether that's the follow up, whether that's, you know, possessions. He gets quite a lot of touches for a ruck. You know, like, you know, his handballs, his kicks, his marks, or at least his contests around the ground. He just gives it everything all the time.
Is it just me that you reckon that he gets pinged a bit too unnecessarily in some of the contests for like penalties against? And I'm looking back at it and I don't see necessarily where these penalties are there, but yeah, he does get the whistle blown against him often enough.
I feel like it's probably, you know, part of the fact of, you know, why we love him is because he just has that aggression, you know, and he maybe just, you know, shows that off when he's trying to win the contest. But yeah, I mean, it is crazy how many free kicks he gets against. I'm sure he would be number 1 frees against in the comp.
Yeah, I think so. Like I watch a fair few games, and I don't think there's anyone else that I notice that's getting as many. The other one is James Jordan. He's continually going out there and taking scalps. So this week on Sam Walsh, it was the first time that Walsh had less than 30 touches for the season. It was his lowest clearances for the year with only 3. and the most amount of clangers at 7 for the year. So clearly, JJ is doing the job every single week, and I just am excited to see what he keeps doing. So next week, we've got the Bombers. It's interesting to see who sits on. Does he sit on the Bont? The Bont's very difficult to hammer down, or does he roll over to like a Treloar or something? I don't know. Either way, we've got ourselves such a weapon, and we did not expect that to happen.
I don't. 100%. I don't think he'll be on the Bont. I don't think the Bont is a player that is that easy to stop in a tagging sort of sense. Although he has been a bit hot and cold this year anyway. Touch wood. I would say he could go to Bailey Dale at half back. I think you've also got to realise he's pretty light framed sort of guy, and the Bont is
A beast.
6'2" midfielder, is not an extremely taggable player. So I don't think it's like why JJ didn't go to Patrick Cripps. He went to Sam Walsh. So I think you got to pick the battles correctly. And Treloar's a good shout, but I think let's see. It'll be an interesting one. There's players he can go to for sure.
I mean, every single week I'm excited about like naming that player who we think is going to walk over to, because I find the tagger role just fascinating. There's not too many of them left in the game, and to see us employing it despite it kind of coming out of favor the last couple of years. Sorry, it's been out of favor for some time, or at least not every team's necessarily going out there to find someone to have that role. And the last couple of years, we've found someone who could play that role, and Horse loves it. Horse always goes for it. So, yeah, man, can't
One
wait.
thing
JJ.
to say about JJ too is that he kicked a very important goal for us in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Pretty sure was it our first that he kicked, or was it the second? I can't remember. It was one of the first two, and he took it on from outside 50 and nailed it. So that was another turning point there. So well done to him, not just impacting defensively.
He is a man who gets everything done. I think that's the general sense we're getting out of this guy. All right, so look, the Bob medal. Let's just get stuck into it. Our equivalent of the Bob Skilton medal. We give 3-2-1 points out to the best players every single week. We count that up, and then we give them a prize. We send a case of Tui's Old to that person's house. 3 points for Chad, 2 points for Heaney, and 1 point for Rowie. No surprises there. Any other players, mate, that you think should get some love?
Well, look, I think obviously we've spoken about Grundy, we've spoken about JJ, we've spoken about have we? No, that's it. But I think Errol had a really good game on the outside as well.
Yep.
I think it's really our mids. As I said, Francis. I don't think he was in our top 10 players necessarily, but he definitely wasn't necessarily the last. So that's better than usual. So he had a good game. But I think it was almost set in stone at half time. Chad was on the whole game. He probably dropped off a little bit in the last quarter, but first 3 quarters he was clearly best on ground. Heaney was clearly second best, and Rowie just brought the pressure, like 35 pressure acts, which is more than 10 than everybody else. I think that's what we said at half time, and none of them let up. They kept going, so I think they're all very deserving.
Led from the middle, which is more than you can ask of most teams, and we've got it in droves. So, and then beside those 3 players, I'd put directly underneath them players like Grundy, players like Blakey, who I thought was fantastic at the back line, albeit did try to chew off a bit more than he needed to a couple of times during the game. I remember we were just like, why did he choose to do that at one point in the game? Like, he just went, there was no room for him to run through. He decided to run through it, and then he just got tackled by like 3 blokes who were just sitting there waiting for him, which I guess is going to be the plan of a lot of teams. Like, they know how much damage he can do off the halfback when he gets his run on. He's near impossible to catch. Very few players can catch him. So teams are going to be looking for him to do that. And I feel like this week was the first time that the plan to contain him really worked on that run. But he did get loose 2 times before that. So, Blakey's Blakey. What are you going to do?
Yeah, well, he also did just run into about 3 Carlton players when he really didn't need to. So,
It almost felt like on purpose, right? Like, did he think he was going to burst through to 3 different players? I think Sam Walsh was one of those guys as well. So
yeah, he needs to rein it in some moments. Probably that one was okay to give up, but if that was a close game, just really not necessary. You've got to do. It's great when he has his runs, but he's just got to do the simple situations right. And it's sometimes he's coming out from the back line and kicking it directly to a player because he's trying to finesse a kick and he just not miss kicks, but doesn't put enough power into it. And I think that's an area of his game that he can really improve. However, no, look, I mean, 90% of the time he's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting we say that, and I think it's something that I've noticed. We've noticed a fair few times at the game, but it's not seemed to have damaged us. So, although it's quite clear to see when it happens, so when Blakey does go out there and make and try to make a run or do like a wicked kick or something just insane, it might damage us in the moment, but it doesn't seem to have like turned the momentum in any game we've seen him do that in. So maybe we should give him a fair bit of credit where he actually knows when to apply that extra piece. Maybe he's not as risky as we feel that he is, and he's sussing out the situation before he takes it. What do you reckon? I'm coming up with this theory at the top of my head right now, and maybe there's some legs to it.
Could be. I mean, I think we've just got to pay closer attention to exactly the times where it happens in future and see. I mean, hopefully we don't have to and it doesn't keep happening. But I guess from here on, it's a point in our brains now where we're gonna watch out for that. So hopefully it does happen at times where it's just not too much of a momentum stifler.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. All right, mate. Look, that takes us into the game. We still hold on to first place, and our percentage is still well up there. You were keeping a track of that. I think we went up to like 158 or 159 during the game.
We ended up where we were at the start of the last quarter, really. I mean,
yeah.
I think it was 150, 155, and we're at 154.8, I think.
Yeah. Let me check. 154. Yeah, 154.7. So, yeah, that is just a crazy for and against day. That percentage is nuts. So we're two games clear from the. Hang on, is that the Bombers?
It is the Bombers.
Oh my god, what is going on with this competition?
Well, it's very even. Clearly, I mean from 12th to second, there's 3 games in there. There's 3 game difference from 12th to second. So that says what it needs to say.
That's the competition. I'm having a quick look at the Bombers' last few games. So last game was against North. They won by 40. Okay, fair enough. Do you expect that? They beat the Giants by 20. Okay. They beat the Eagles by just 6. That was a close one. That could have been done for them. They drew against the Pies. That's massive. And they beat the Crows away by 3. So, and they got Richmond next. Okay, so like the Bombers are going to solidify themselves into the finals at this rate. So that's interesting. And the Giants, and the Cats lost to the Suns in Darwin to give us a bit of space there. What do you think, mate? The competition, I reckon Collingwood's going to still keep making their way up that ladder. That's just me thinking.
Well, look, it's very unpredictable at the moment. I mean, Collingwood are in good form, but it's West Coast beat Melbourne.
Yes.
So anything can happen. Port Adelaide were based on that clock that didn't stop. They should have lost to Hawthorn, and Hawthorn somehow threw that away. It was a crazy last few minutes. I was watching that game. So I was watching both those games actually, but it's you can't really rule anyone out of it yet. I mean, the teams are playing well, and it seems very even. I mean, I mean, it's one game at a time. I don't want to toot our horn too much, but we're the only team that's played 7 of the top 10, and we've won all of those games. So hopefully we can continue being a head and shoulders above the competition for the next 10 years, or at least just until the start of next year. Really, I mean, I'd take that
until the summer. We'll take the summer.
exactly. I mean, let's see, but it is one game at a time. It does worry me that we've hit such good patch of form too early, potentially. So let's see how we go. But at this point, we're looking good.
Yeah, we spoke about that at the game. Like, do you take anything away from that? Do you, like me personally, I don't believe in a whole like you're bursting out too early. I think from a fitness perspective, yes. I think you want to build your fitness up and your strength up towards the end of the season because during the season, the guys walk in, as good a body as they feel they can get, with as much muscle as they feel they can have. And then as the season goes on, they struggle to like keep that muscle on as they get leaner and leaner as the season goes on. So there's some reasons why it's probably a bit of a problem to be playing so hot, but I don't think it's a problem. Like, do you? I know this will be a talking point eventually, that there would be some pundit to be like, oh, hey, by the way, did you remember last year we talk about this, and so let's recycle the same talking point where if a team's going well, they must not do well eventually. Do you hold any candle to that?
A little bit. I mean, I know, I think it was 2016, Freo went like 11-0 and then just dropped off late in the season. And, was that 20? Oh, no, that was 2015, sorry. When that happened, I think 2016, it was North Melbourne that just started hot. And then, I don't think they've ever really recovered from that. So I do a little bit. Collingwood obviously did it last year, and then they, went pretty much 1-1, I think, the last 6 rounds. And, obviously it didn't prove too detrimental to them. It's not, I don't know. It remains to be seen. I think we just, it's the thing is as well, though, is that I don't feel like we're playing perfect football. Which helps it a little bit. There's still areas for us to improve. For example, those first 15 minutes against Carlton, it was looking really bad. The week before against Freo, they had some really dominant patches where they just couldn't score. So it's not necessarily like we're playing the absolute peak of our ability, but we also haven't lost by less than 22 points. So it is a little bit worrying that we might be timing it a bit too early, but I mean, hopefully not at all, and we can just keep this form up, as I said, for the next 10 years.
Yep. And then Chinkanyama, just to remind everyone, we did lose against Richmond, who were not being competitive at all. But they did play very well on the day. We have to give them
They also did
credit.
play very well at the start of the year. They got a few big injuries against us, but their first few games, in opening round, they got flogged, but they came back quite hard. They only lost to Carlton by, under a goal. They tested Port Adelaide up until the final quarter. They were even up at half time. They played us and beat us, and then I think from there they haven't. Oh well, they were only 7 points, below the Saints, and then from there I think that's when the wheels have fallen off a bit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, then let's just see. We obviously have no choice but to just see how the season goes. But
they're even up against Melbourne actually at half time in the Anzac Day Eve. So they're very injury hit, and they haven't been good the last few weeks. But the start of the year, I think we hit them at the wrong time, obviously. So they did play very well against us, and we played very poorly.
Yep. Double banger, mate. There's been a couple of injuries during the game, and there's one big talking point here. So, one injury on our side. Foxy came off with a shoulder injury, did it in a bit of a contest. He hit the ground in a pretty awkward way. So you would imagine that Roberts comes walking into the spot. What do you think about that?
It seems most likely. Clearly with Parker out, which we'll touch on in a minute. It seems like the most reasonable person to come in. I wonder if they'll give Braden a proper run, and have Fox, and have Roberts resting for the week and give him the bye, and just give him a proper break so he can come back just as strong afterwards. They might put Braden as the sub. I don't know. Let's wait and see. But unless they wanted to change things up in a certain way against the Bulldogs, I mean,
Yeah, I'm trying to think
like Corey Warner,
bit of extra pressure and speed in that forward line. I know they've got
or
they do have a bit of speed kind of going around in the big boys.
it seems like Roberts is the most likely. Gus, if they wanted extra midfield support, but the mids are going strong.
Well, speaking about
Seems like Roberts would be the clear choice, but I mean, Corey or Gus could come in.
Speaking about Gus, now he's going to have a solid opportunity to get himself some game time finally, because we've got Parker out for 6 weeks for a hit on a player in the VFL against Frankston. Now, just to kind of, I'm sure everyone at home has seen it, but just to kind of just paint a little bit of a picture, the ball's come through past Parker. There's one of the opposition players coming through, chasing the ball. Parker's seen the opportunity to shepherd pretty freaking hard, and hit and just banged into the bloke in the chest. As it happens, the back of Parker's head is slammed into this guy's head, into his face, and there's multiple fractures to the face. Some surgery is going to need taken. There was a concussion, and it's likely the end of the season for that player. He has been given 6 weeks by the VFL tribunal, and that is where we stand right now. The Swans were asking for 4 with his good guy record, given that he was only ever suspended once, and that was last year in a very dubious bullshit call as well. I remember that one dearly. Mate, over to you, Sam. What do you think? Is there more to talk about here, or do we think that's fair?
Oh, there's more to talk about. Let's just cast back to when Andrew Gaff smacked Andrew Brayshaw in the face.
That's right. Yeah.
And broke his jaw. Was that 6 weeks?
That was 6 weeks.
How far we've come.
Yeah, we've come a long way.
Obviously, that was 6 years ago. So times have changed. Concussion is, for lack of a better word, in vogue, or lack of a better phrase. Do I think that Parker deserved to get suspended? Yes. He made contact off the ball and made contact, accidentally or not accidentally, but it was accidentally, so that should come into account, to the head, and has caused injury to the player. Do I think Parker should have been suspended? Unfortunately, yes. Do I think that action is worth 6 weeks? Not in a million years.
What's the reason behind it? Like my biggest part of it is, we know now that the consequence of the hit is what makes up the amount of time you sit out. We last year they were trying to tell us, no, it's the action, but now we know it's the consequences. The fact that the gent has now sitting out the rest of the season with multiple fractures to the face and a concussion, that is the biggest talking point here. I think that's the only thing. If the guy got up and just walked away, Parker's sitting with a 1 weeker or a fine, in my eyes. Do you agree? I guess the first start?
Probably. But how do you get from a 1 week to a 6 week? Especially if his shoulder hit the guy in the head. I understand this call, but
you get it.
His head hit his head. Who's to say that Parker didn't end up in a worse scenario? Or
Parker's head's like a fridge, though. That's the difference.
Yeah, well, true. But in terms of, I just think that, who's to say that Parker couldn't have ended up just as bad from that, given it's head-to-head. Again, I think he should be suspended for the action. I'm not denying that. Do I think 6 weeks is fair? No. Especially after what we've seen Toby Green get 1 week. for leaving the ground and making contact. We saw Peter Wright get 4. He concussed Harry Cunningham. We've seen Callum Brown get 3. He concussed, Tommy McCartan, who's still out. So yeah,
Didn't Cozzy Pickett leave his feet about 3 feet in the air and smash some guy in the head? And I think he only got 2 weeks for it.
Yeah. So look, clearly it's inconsistent, and it is what it is, and the decision's been made. So we just have to live with it. Obviously, it's going to be Luke Parker's worst season in footy, but hopefully this will allow him to get back to his best towards the back end of the year, be super fit. Come back into the side, and then hopefully stay in the side next year, because I love him and I hope he gets back into our side.
Yeah, I mean he's just such a crazy good player. Like he's the most probably he's the guy who, for me, I just look at consistency and elite, and I think of Parker immediately. He's the guy that I want all of our players to emulate. He's had an incredible record for 14 years. On the way, also being one of the toughest players in the league. How has he managed to be as tough as he is on the ball every game in AFL standard, and only had one minor indiscretion last year, which is questionable, should not have been a suspension, and then you've done this one. And as you said, impact to the head, concussion, major damage. Appreciate that. Yes, for sure. It was interesting that the Swans walked in there wanting 4, because they'd already made up their minds that he's going to be sitting out for some time. But he ended up getting the full 6. So AFL got their way, and the competition has changed significantly from punching some bloke in the jaw. So it's a very different game, but all in the better, I think, for the long term. And I can understand why they're doing this. I get it. But it's just going to take some time and adjustment for us fans to kind of get around to it. So, and it doesn't help that it's inconsistent as hell between Peter Wright, Callum Brown, and then now Parker. It's all over the shop. So
I wonder if they would have given him 6 if he was in the AFL and did that.
I don't think so.
AFL. I don't think so.
I don't think so. No, I think he would have ended up with 3 or 4, probably 4, because they keep upping it. They keep increasing the heat. He wouldn't have got 6, I don't think. But VFL is a lot more trigger happy. All right, look, well, that does bring us to the end of this episode. It's been a long one, so if you did enjoy it, please give us a like, follow us on any social medias, or just send us a message whenever you can.
Otherwise, make sure to keep an eye out for more content during the week, including our weekly team announcements, as well as a bunch of stuff on game day.
And we look forward to seeing you at the pub to watch our Swannies play the Dogs at Marvel Stadium. But until then, up the Bloods, and can't you Swannies?